let me just move us into the beginning. So this is time for us to think about who we are as we're teaching, and it's referred to as our teaching persona. Who am I when I teach? And so as a part of this today, we're going to think about what that means, what a teaching persona is, and think about, is it different for an online course versus a face-to-face course? And we're going to think about the skills that we need to use in order to have that online presence in our course, and then what are the components of that. So let's start out by talking about the definition of persona. And I started out by going to the dictionary to find the definition, and it's, according to the dictionary, the aspect of someone's character that is presented to or perceived by others. So synonyms would be that public face, the character, the personality, the identity, what it looks like to others, what we present, the face that we present to others. But then the other thing that I did through some of the research, and I've got all the articles listed at the end of this, is think about what that means from a university teacher's perception, our persona. And one of them said, it is my public teaching self. This one I love. I made choices that were designed for that, but it was pretty haphazard. Didn't really think about it. Another interesting research article said that it is definitely a more conscious process in our online settings. And then I love this last one, trying to think about how to take myself from an ordinary class into an extraordinary place where learning occurs. So those are some of the definitions of a persona. So here we are. Ooh, we have just completed the first week of the semester, and I congratulate all of you for having accomplished that. Sometimes it seems like a huge hurdle as we're moving through that. So congratulations. Now, here's my question for you. How did you, or how do you, introduce yourselves to your class? So most of the rest of this interactive today is going to be open your mic and respond. So this is one where I'm inviting you to open your mic and respond. How do you introduce yourself in your classes?
Hi, this is Dominica from Broward College.
Hi.
I teach blended courses, and so I have both an online introduction discussion and a face-to-face discussion time, introduction time. And I find that the online one, the students open up more and they share more of themselves and they build more of a sense of community. And when they come to the second and third class meetings, then they start to switch their seats around and engage with one another.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And once they start to become comfortable in the class, then they really do open up a good bit more. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
Thank you for that. Mary?
Hi. I have found that I like to create an avatar, kind of to go with my picture, and kind of show a fun, approachable image of myself. So I put that on my announcements, or I try to put it on my discussion boards, and maybe creating a welcome video also. And I know that you, Judy, do this.
Yes.
And I really like the one in which your cats jump onto your lap, because that shows the human side of you.
Yeah.
So I really like to present myself to my students as a real person. So maybe in my intro, I will talk about the things that I enjoy and kind of give them a taste of who I am as a person.
Mhm. And that's an important piece of it, and that brings us to where we can pretty much just jump right into it. So when we think about who we are as a teacher, often we don't give it a lot of thought, particularly if we're new to a new teacher or new to online. And it has occurred to me, plus I've read in some of the research that that's a perception that develops over time and with experience. And as we have talked about in a number of our sessions, it also takes reflection. And being an effective teacher involves a lot of reflection. So we have to think about how we see ourselves and how we hope our students are perceiving us. But one of the really, really key points, and Mary, you brought that up as you were speaking, and Domenica, you also as well, is that perception of who we are has to be true to our own personality. We can't put on a mask and keep it functional for very long. So let's go take a look at the Padlet and talk about the components of a teaching persona. Go out and go down here. We have a couple of comments about face-to-face and online. And if you put that in there, I'm going to invite you to speak up and read it.
I put the engaging personality for the face-to-face component and a consistent presence for the online component.
A consistent presence in the activities, both feedback and contributions to the discussions. And you're right, that is an extremely important piece of it, being consistent in that course, so that they know that there really is someone on the other side of that computer. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, so I have a list of things that I think contribute to creating your teaching persona. And the first one I have is kind of your teaching style. If you are an authoritarian, stern kind of person, if you are more like equalitarian, democratic kind of leader, and that will reflect on the tone of your interactions with your students. And it also reflects a lot on your grading policy. Some professors like to take points off. Some professors like to award extra points. So there's a range of how stern you are in terms of how you present yourself. And then I think the amount and the frequency of feedback is really an important way to establish your teaching persona. Being creative in the way you actually deliver that kind of your feedback. I remember when I was teaching writing for ESL classes, I loved using taxonomies. So I did not solve the problem for my students. I basically guided them to where the answer was. So, and then sharing of some personal stories whenever they're relevant and whenever they contribute and enhance whatever you're doing in the class. So, and then I realized all of these are transferable to the online.
Yeah.
And I really like what Domenica said about it being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a bad day, but I feel that being consistent in and being fair in the way you set up your rules, your classroom rules. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was noticing, and as I was looking at what you posted in the Padlet, that that it all is transferable. When I put these two pieces up there, in my mind, I was thinking there was a difference between how we come across when we're face to face and how we come across online. But as I looked at what you read, it occurred to me that maybe there isn't a difference. With regards to what Domenica mentioned in the online one, the consistent presence in the activities, we had faculty member in visiting this morning who was making a reference to the fact that she uses a lot of active learning, a lot of activities in the classroom, and expects her students to be actively engaged in the classroom, and that they were giving her a hard time about that because up to these courses that she was teaching, the students' online courses have consisted of watch the PowerPoint, respond to the discussion board, and take a quiz and maybe a presentation of some sort at the end. And that's definitely not a quality type of an online course. So then one wonders how those professors might interact in a face-to-face. But being active and available in the classroom, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's online, is an important piece of it. We have a guest in the room with us. Tracy, did you want to add to that conversation?
Yes, I wanted to say that as a student, I recall when I have an online course, and just as you said, when we're responding to the blogs or various information, but I never really get a feel or a true understanding of what is expected unless I have some interaction with the professor. Because I think as a student, sometimes we're left to guess and kind of figure out, okay, what is it that that he or she is looking for? And when we don't have that professor, I guess the personality or a little feedback in some way. So I think some of the classes that I've done best with is when we've had those collaborate sessions.
Yes, yeah. When you can actually question the instructor and say, what's your expectation here? Or if they jump into the conversations in the discussion board or wherever, so that you know what they are looking for. And that then becomes a tough call for the instructor, because I'm always reluctant to step in, or often am reluctant to step into a discussion in the discussion board, because I don't want my ideas to stop their flow of their interaction. So it's a tough decision in their balancing act. Anything else about the components of a teaching persona? You've gotten some good ideas here, and you're starting to develop yourself a list of what to do. And we also had the addition of the one that says the video of who you are as a teacher, and getting to know who your students are as learners to help them learn and about how they learn. And that's I'm teaching an undergrad course right now, and that's an important part of it, is helping them know that I want to know more about who they are, why they're there, and what their expectation is. Any other comments on this? Lisa, did you want to add anything in on the conversation?
Well, sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good. Hello from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, by the way.
Wonderful.
I'm so pleased to be able to join you today.
And we're pleased to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to add, I love this conversation, and it is so important for us as instructors, and I'll just speak of my online experience with students, to Yes, create those videos for them right off in the beginning of the course. Tell them who you are. Invite them to also create videos to share with their peers and with myself who they are. And as you were saying, really getting to know them so that we can help them take their background experience, their background knowledge, and use those strengths to help fill in those learning gaps, those experience gaps. So valuable in terms of, right in the beginning, hitting the ground running with them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and helping them to understand that what each one of them brings to the class is what builds that unique experience as a specific class, and that's important. Each class is different, online or face-to-face, and it's important that what they bring into it is part of what builds the culture of that class. Okay, so I have some questions for you, and again, I'm going to introduce Marcella, who is manning the chat. And I'm going to make sure that you know that I'm inviting each one of you to open your mics and join in the conversation. Perhaps not all the mics open at once because we get some feedback, but you are here, and by here meaning you are an instructor within the institution because of the expertise, the experience that you bring in, and the knowledge that you bring in from that field. So what is it that drew you to your field of study? Thank you, Lisa. Jump on in.
Oh, good. Thank you. Oh, here we go. Well, yeah, I've been a teacher now for 30 years. I started off as a K-12 teacher and then became an elementary school principal. And I continued in, through district level, K-12 district level experience because I was interested in learning a little more in terms of administration. And I then became an adjunct faculty member for Southern New Hampshire University up here in the Northeast. And now I work with them in their College of Online and Continuing Ed. And of course, I still teach online. And initially what drew me is the excitement. I became so excited when I learned about learning, when I learned about the brain,
Yep.
and I learned about poverty and what poverty can do to the brain. So we have our youngsters and our middle-aged students and even our adults who experience lives of poverty, what that can do to the brain and consequently their mindsets. And all of these different pieces, of course I could go on, but all of these different pieces continue to motivate me. And I found that the more I learned about how to learn and learning in general, the more I wanted to share with student teachers and teachers in general. And just, I wanted to become part of different communities of practice throughout the country, which consequently is why I'm communicating with you today. So that, for me, that's the motivation to continue to learn and share and learn more.
Okay, and that's great. And you have actually jumped right into my next slide as well. So I can move in. Let me just go ahead and move over to that. Know that the first part of this is what drew you to your field of study, why you continue to pursue it, and then the next part for both you and everyone else that's joining us is how you convey that. What we clearly heard in Lisa's voice was the passion. How you convey that to your students. Anybody else want to join in? What brought you into the field, and why you continue to pursue it?
I'll share a little bit of my experience if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Domenica.
Sure. I wear many hats, actually. I am an adjunct instructor of Italian, and I teach blended courses here. I am also a senior instructional designer, so I assist instructors with developing their courses, and I deliver workshops. And also I've developed some online courses for French and Italian, online and blended. So my passion lies with getting students passionate about learning. And I realize that not every student wants to learn Italian or wants to learn French, but if they want to learn, then you're going to spend the next 8 weeks with me learning whatever it is that I'm teaching, but I want them to have that desire to go on. And I really feel like in a face-to-face class, the teacher can convey that, but with an online component, you have so many more options to enrich it. So I'm not just teaching a language, I'm not just teaching skills, but I'm teaching culture, and I'm teaching them to want to be global citizens and to just really want to spread their wings. So that's what I do.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And that is exactly what it's all about. We may teach in a particular field of study and clearly be passionate about it, but being able to convey that excitement to the students is what really takes us over the top. Tracy's in the room with us. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what she said, because, you know, as a teacher and having that passion for what we do, even if the student isn't necessarily passionate about what we're passionate about, but they see the excitement of learning in us, because I think as educators that we instinctively we love learning. Yeah. And we're always hopeful that our students will love learning too. So when they see us passionate about something, I think it conveys to them that they also can be passionate about something too, you know, whatever it may be.
Yep, definitely. And I have a couple of comments here that I have received from a faculty member who's not joining us, but the first one is a message that he received from a student last Friday, which was Friday of the first week of classes, mind you. So right at the very beginning, I'm taking your class. I just wanted to share some positive feedback with you. I think the way you have the students learn in the class by using notes and taking their own notes is brilliant. You're organizing class and bring in relevant examples and kept my attention during the entire class. Parentheses, not an easy thing to accomplish. This was in a face-to-face class, but I have a whole list of some of the same types of feedbacks that he gets from his online classes as well. I want to say I'm looking forward to the next few weeks and cannot wait to learn as much as you are willing to teach me. Wow. And, you know, that's a pretty powerful comment. And I have some of his spots from the end of the semester with some very similar. And believe me, this is it's a research methods course, which every one of our colleges for sure, and probably every department has some sort of a methods requirement. And I have to say that it's probably not something I would be passionate about, but clearly he is as he teaches it. So it's how we come across, again, it's that teaching persona that is what really gets that message out there. So let's see where we are. So we've kind of touched on this. What can students learn from our relationship with the content, and does that change over time?
Well, I can jump in.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
So I think, you know, I'll go back to what I was talking about before when I brought up relationships and the importance of that, of establishing that student-teacher relationship, so that we can get to know who they are, and then use our background, experience, our knowledge to help them build upon their background and experience. And I think it does change because in my experience, when I get to know my students, I can help connect for them. I can not only connect in terms of the content and skill, but I can help them connect in terms of an actual contact, professional contacts, resources. And then, you know, as their learning builds, as they change as a student, as they change as someone who's emerging into the professional realm, whatever that may be, then they want to learn more. They ask different questions. They essentially become a different person, because it is about that transformation that we're focusing on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's what I heard you describing sounded like what we refer to in the field of education, particularly probably in others as well, is that whole scaffolding. We give them a framework for them to use, and then again, the constructivist perspective, which I know Tracy has researched, that we give them something to start from so that they can build with confidence that they're learning and growing in the field. Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Any other comments?
Yeah, it's Mary. I had to step out, but I'm back. So I don't know if you talked about this, but I think this is very relevant about content, is a faculty member's approach to content is different between faculty members. So we can have the exact same subject, and then my perspective on teaching it will be different from everybody else's. My experience from teaching it and everything that I know and how I have interacted with my own content throughout the years, it's very personal. And so the way I chunk my content, the way I sequence my content, the way I establish relationships between these chunks and between other areas of knowledge, I think this is very important, and it definitely changes over time as you become more confident, as you learn about other subjects, as you teach related subjects. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So let's take a look at what I've got on the next one. So this is getting to a little bit more of a personal perspective. Think about a characteristic that you have that the people who know you well would recognize as being an important part of who you really are. So give that some thought, and then think about whether or not that trait is actually present in your teaching persona, and how it's present, or if it isn't, maybe it's time to think about why it isn't. Some of the examples from the research that I've come up with are perhaps someone who uses a great deal of humor as they are talking, and if so, how does it come across in a face-to-face classroom? How does it come across in an online classroom, or something that's about who you really are? How does it come across for you? Oh, sure. Go ahead, Lisa.
I was raising my hand. I was trying to be appropriate.
Thank you.
Well, I just actually found a little icon where I could raise my hand, so I got excited and I wanted to use it.
Yay! Thank you.
So I think a characteristic that really does describe me is my interest in learning, and how excited I can get when I'm learning something new, whether it's about education or not. And I think for me, in terms of the trait being present in my teaching persona, it is an absolute. Because I am so excited about learning, it does come through in my online or my traditional classroom. And many of my students have talked about how my motivation motivates them. And I think one of the key pieces that I try to bring up when I talk about learning is that mistakes happen, and it's okay to make mistakes. And for many of us who are learning, whether it's a skill, a talent, juggling or skateboarding or ice skating, I mean, how many times do we fall before we can actually, do, whatever it is, with ease? And I always think about when my daughter was learning to ride a bike for the first time, and the agony, you know, I don't need to remind you about that. I'm sure you have experience with that, but you know, the agony, and then all of a sudden it just clicked. And so I bring that up to my students and in other examples, so that, because I work with adults, our online student population is, you know, like the 35, 40-year-old who's going back to school for a new career, or maybe to get a degree so they can keep their job. So, you know, a lot of my students, a lot of the students that we create our courses for, haven't been in school for a very, very long time. And they're nervous about failing. They're nervous about not getting it right away, or stumbling.
Of course.
And, you know, you need to make it okay. And that sort of comes out in my excitement and my motivation. So that's the yes and the why.
All right, absolutely, thank you. And you just triggered something in Tracy's mind too.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, yeah, I think for me it would be connectivity, and the fact that and interdependence. I like being connected with people, and because I am legally blind and find myself in often in situations where the ease of interaction with people makes it a whole lot easier for me. So I think that's something to look at in terms of planning, you know, lesson planning, and finding ways for students to really connect and be interdependent in a positive and constructive manner, you know.
Yeah, and to find those connections.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Anything else?
Yeah, if there's time, I would like to say, can we have one more, Judy?
Of course you can.
So building on what Lisa said, trying new things. I'm not the kind of professor that would always do the same. And I have found myself even mid-sentence talking to my students, and then I get an idea and I tell them very, very openly, why don't we try this? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So let's say you're doing a group project, and then you have an idea of a new way to have your students work with that content or a specific concept. If that happens to me, I do want to try that out, but I do want to make my students know that this may or may not work, that this is something we're doing for the first time. And we kind of polish these things after we do them once or twice. So just that not being afraid of failing when you want to try new things. I think your students will be supportive if you're open and transparent about it and about the benefits it may bring to the class.
Absolutely, yeah. Anything else? Anybody else want to add anything else? This is has been a great interaction and conversation. So what I've been putting out there for you is to think about what it takes to put together a teaching persona that enables you as the teacher to thrive, because it intrigues me to think about how energized I get when I'm prepared to walk in the classroom. If I'm not prepared, I'm really kind of, but when I'm prepared to walk in the classroom and share with the students. So what it takes for me to be able to thrive, but for me to come across in a way that my students are just as excited to learn, and that the content can be communicated effectively. So that's the things that we need to reflect on as we're thinking about this. We're early in the semester, so it's our opportunity to jump in there and get some of these things across. And I am not sure. Oh, I do have a delightful video. I am working with a faculty member we have just been putting her course together. So I'm going to switch over to my sharing. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to invite Lisa and Domenica, if you have not already, if you would put your email in the chat room so that we can connect up and send some things out to you. Thanks.
I sure will.
Thank you. And I'm going to go into my video and then get her started. This is Dr. Graciela Cruz Torra, and this is the introductory video that she recorded for us for her course. Her course is History of Cuba. And I'm not going to play the whole video, although it is delightful and charming, and I'll be glad to share it if you're interested. But I want to show you some pieces of it. Let me get to where I can. There it is.
Cuba. Do not be frightened. The course will be taught in English, although I promise you will pick up some Spanish in the course of it. I'm very excited about teaching a course online on Cuban history. It's a course that I have taught for many years, for 26 years at FAU, and that I actually taught before, both at FIU and at the University of Miami. Therefore, it's a course that I have devoted a lot of attention to over the years, have changed many things, found new materials or some that came out that became available. And this is why it's a course that I particularly care for, because it's basically my research field. Although I began researching revolutionary Cuba and more recent history, over time I moved back. By the time I did my doctoral dissertation at the University of Miami, I was already writing much about the wars of independence in the 19th century, and most of my recent research during the last decade really is from the beginning of the 17th century.
Oh, I should go.
So as you see, I've moved back over time because clearly, as one knows more about a place, one really wants to dig further back and also have access to archival materials, not just the news of the day.
So I'm going to scoot back over closer to the end of it.
Cuban deities, which very often I say Afro-Cuban as opposed to African, because I think that what makes them so interesting is that they're really a combination of both the Catholic beliefs that African slaves began adopting, first imposed, but eventually it became the religion because everyone had to be Catholic in the Spanish colony. But obviously the survival of their own African traditions really converged, in a new syncretic religion. And I have some of those, especially as conceived by modern Cuban artists, which I think is very interesting. From a major Cuban magazine, I have materials here, and so just talking, except for great Cuban food that I don't have in the office, I think that you can come over and talk and get a good feel of a lot of the things that interest me and that I have samples of in this room. So I really look forward to this course. I will be as available as possible.
And so I'll take us back to where we were. I just wanted to give you an example. To me, that clearly comes across to her students exactly who she is and the passion and that she has felt for her content and for her students. Again, has to be a challenging class, and yet because she put so much of herself into it, it really is what makes it come alive for them. Any comments? Anybody want to make any comments about Dr. Cruz?
I felt that I wanted to take her class.
Yes, yeah.
She's so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Okay, and again, as I mentioned, if those of you who are online, will please put your emails in, and particularly for those of you who are outside the FAU environment institution, our next scheduled we do the professional development sessions every Monday. Next Monday is the university holiday, so we won't be doing one then. And then the following Monday starts our fall e-certification workshop orientation, which, by the way, is available completely online if anyone were interested. And then after that, we will have returned from the Florida Distance Learning Association conference, and we will be sharing in our professional development session the things that were new and brought out in that conference. What's the theme of the conference is what's driving distance learning to excellence. So I thank you for joining us today, and look forward to connecting up with you again. Marcella, yes, ma'am.
Dr. Lisa wants to know if you can share the cartoon with her.
These are from the source of it. Is that what you're looking for, Lisa?
Yeah, well, either the source or just a copy of it. I think it's the cutest thing.
Isn't it great?
Yes, it's very, very cute.
I attended, and I think we have a couple of things in common, because I purchased these from a conference that was on brain-based learning and Education Illustrated, and I have quite a few of them. Yes, it's they really get right to the point of education. Yep, definitely. I knew from your comments that we were that we had some things to share. So yes, I'll be more than happy to share that with you. And thank you for asking. Thank you. So, and I think my next slide is simply my reference list, and I will be sharing. This has been recorded, and it takes a while for them to get the recording taken care of and ready to present, but I'll send out the link for you, but I will also send you this presentation itself. And this is the list of references. So I am really thankful and grateful that you have joined us today, and I look forward to lots more conversations. Lisa, you referenced being interested in communities of practice, and that truly is what we see this as being, not only an FAU community of practice, a statewide community of practice, and further on, because it's through the sharing of this that we are able to really able to learn and grow. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to our next time together. Thank you.